I started when I was about 10, well, really about 8, with my aunt who had Irish setters. And so I started going with her here and there to all the shows. And it got to the point, because I would help her show and things like that. And so then she told my dad that I needed my own dog. So he said, okay, well, we'll get her own dog, because I started doing junior showmanship then. So I did. He goes out and buys me a dog, and he buys me a Great Dane. So I'm like, 4 foot, and the judges always got a big kick out of it, because they'd always come around. They say, we just want to make sure that there was someone on the end of that leash, because they couldn't see me, because those dogs are huge, and I was just, and my aunt's like, Bob, what were you thinking? But when she left, I told my dad, I said, I do not want an Irish setter, because they are crazy. So that's how my first dog was Miss Midnight of Marmaduke, and her name was Missy, and she was a Great Dane. So that's how I got started. So in my early 20s, I hooked up with a professional handler, traveled with them, and they had Siberian Huskies. So I got 2 Siberian Husky girls, and when I got pregnant with my youngest son, at a show, I went into labor. And so, to make a long story short, he said no more showing. I was bedridden from 20 weeks to, he was born a preemie, and with everything that comes along with preemie, I then had the breeder take my dogs back, because there's just no way. So once he got healthy, and I was able then to get back in the dog. So I went and I got Cavaliers. I showed them for a number of years, and then kind of took another break. Life comes, things happen, life happens. So then with the farm, I had sheep and we had goats, and I just needed help bringing them in from the back pastures up to the house. So I started searching, and I didn't want a big dog. And so I found these minis, and that was Trigger. He was my first. And so he was like awesome, bringing up the sheep. So I'm like, I really like these dogs. So started researching them, went to different shows, things like that. Well, to today, I'm on the board of Muscusa, the Miniature American Shepherd Club of the USA. I am a board member. I am the treasurer of the Rolla, Missouri Kennel Club. That's our local kennel club, and I've been part of that kennel club since like 1995. So a long time. I've been the treasurer, I guess, about 6 years. So we have 2 shows every year. I'm big on health testing. So we do 2 clinics a year that I run. I get the docs. I do everything, but it's part of our kennel club. I'm like the chairperson. So I do that. So all my dogs are health tested, full DNA. We do OFA, hips, elbows, and knees, even though the hips are what's required. I just do the other ones. It's not that much more, and it's not a problem in our breed, but one more test ain't going to hurt them. They've already got them sedated, so what's a couple more x-rays? And so, and we do surf. We certify the eyes with OFA. So that's kind of where I started. So I started off at showing, moved into obedience back in the day, but now there's rally. So rally's much more fun. So I still do obedience, but I do rally. So we do herding, we do rally, we do obedience, and we just started agility. I guess last year in March, I started training, and then COVID happened, and then so that's why I just started buying equipment myself, and I do train, but it's outside. Because of COVID, we can't train inside, so we do outside in Wildwood. So, but because of the weather, we can't. But now Purina's recently opened up, so I'm going to start practicing at Purina, which would be more like real trialing anyway. But so that's what we're doing now. Before COVID, and we still do a little bit. We take them like to Orslins, anywhere that allows you to take the dogs, the parks, things like that. But we love going to auctions, and lots of noises, lots of people. I mean, lots of scary stuff for a puppy. That's a lot, you know, the loudspeakers. So we like that the best because we have found that it in one setting gives them everything that they could possibly come into contact with as a dog. So we do, that's the main thing that we do. But with COVID, we've had to adjust that some, only because you can't be in the big groups. So you can't get them to socialize. They need to socialize with dogs, but they also have to have that human. People bending over. So we do a lot of that bending over, the weight, trying to get them to get used to people reaching for them. And from the time they are born, I raise, and I always have, but now it's called puppy culture, puppy enrichment. And it's when, from the moment they're born, they smell a human, you press on their feet. It's a whole process in stimulating all the senses. By doing that, it teaches them that someone's pressing on my foot, that's no big deal. At first, you'll see them, they pull it away because they're like, well, what is that? But eventually you can do that and they don't do anything. They're like, she'll let go in a second. We introduce them to, we put down a cold pad. So we put them on cold. And I'm talking when we do this, it's only like 3, maybe 5 seconds tops. Because you don't want to overstimulate them. There's a fine balance to this process and you don't want to overstimulate them. So it's hot, it's cold, it's holding them up, it's holding them upside down, it's holding them, it's getting them to trust you that, you know, oh, hey, because at first they'll kind of squirm. Now, some dogs naturally won't because they're so laid back. And then we turn them over, you know, and then we put them up. So that's how I raise my puppies. I don't have a lot of litters. I have 3 girls that I can breed. That's their mom, that's Danny, and that's Sally. I have 3. I have it's a sister to these guys, but of course she's like a 1.5 years now. And her name is Maggie, and so I am raising her. We're going to show. We start the confirmation stuff. We have a show we're going to in 2 weeks in Des Moines, Iowa. So, but it's a major, so I'm kind of excited because if she gets winner's, they say winner's bitch. It's a winner's girl dog, but we call them bitches. She could be finished like really quickly. And so that's one of the first things we do. We do the confirmation. So they learn the focus. I talk with my hands, so I train with my hands. So my dogs look for my body language and cues. They, especially herding breeds, and these guys in particular, they are very sensitive to pressure because they use that pressure on sheep, goats, whatever they're herding. So I can step into them and they know to back off. They learn out real quickly because I use that word a lot because to me, out means out and away from me. So when you're especially herding, they need to go out and they have to be, they call it wearing. We go back and forth to move the sheep forward, but keeps the sheep, you know, moving forward in a organized manner, so to speak. So that's what first thing I did, a confirmation, and then I love herding. I love herding. But then we got, like I said, we've always done the obedience stuff, but that's kind of how we raise them. So as puppies, I have ducks. So, and there's trials where you herd ducks. So they've been introduced to ducks. They know the sounds. They know, so that as they get older, they'll recognize that. It kind of desensitizes them, I guess. And they don't think it's a big deal. It's like, oh, that's a duck, you know, like not a big deal. I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for 30 years, been an ICU nurse. And then currently I am a hospice nurse. And I really like it. We're Christians. We do a lot. We camp. When we travel, our dogs usually travel with us. We have a toy hauler, and that's why, because it's for the dogs. And so we do a lot. The dogs are the center of my life. But our dogs, they're in the house. They're in their crates. So you can tell they're used to people coming, going. They're not, you know. Now, Mom is really protective, really. Every time this is only her second litter and she's 4, but boy, she's protective. Yeah. And so we have to work through that, but she's very high drive, Mia is high drive, but I love it about her because she'll do whatever I want her to all day long, every day, and that's just who she is. And we travel a lot together. She must have heard me talking about her. And so that's kind of, and so they're in here too. They're loose. Of course, that little thing right there, it tells us when they're going in there. Because of the wood stove, I worry about them. And I've tried a gate, but then my husband's like, I can't be climbing over that gate. So that's a little toy that they come over and they play with it, and it makes noises. So I know they're heading in there.
It's comforting though. You clearly love the dogs, and you're not raising them like cattle, because we've come across some breeders where we're thinking like, you have so many dogs, there's no way you're giving them attention.
Yeah, and I have, one more than a handful, and I feel bad for them sometimes, because sometimes with work I get real busy, and I feel guilty that they don't have more of my time. Dogs have been part of my life forever. I've always had dogs. Even when was a teenager, then got married, had 2 dogs, always had dogs. And then in because my husband was 24, I was 19 when we got married. So growing up, I say, because at 19 I thought I was all grown up, but not. But so then I said I missed it. It's one of those things, you get bit by that show bug. Man, and the dogs. I had dogs, but I wanted to do more with them, So then I'm like, I want to get back into showing. So I bought, that's when I got into the Huskies. I bought 2 show girls and started showing them until then my son, I got pregnant, and then my son was premature, so I had to stop. So now this time around, I have been showing dogs probably a good 20 years, nonstop. But the early years, my husband and I have been together for 42 years. So, those early years that was coming and going, I couldn't not have dogs.